Two brothers from Manchester, England, spearhead the Britpop movement in the 90s. If they can just stop fighting with each other. Can they? Definitely, maybe. Stay with us. Welcome, friends, to the 3324 podcast. Another great episode coming your way. Eric, we do this weekly, and that's W-E-E-K-L-Y, not weekly. W-E-A-K-L-Y. Right?
Oh. Very good. Yes. Okay. Yes, you're right.
Every week. Now, before we get to anything, I need to address something.
Okay.
Each week or quite often, I tell everybody that they can message us from within their favorite podcast app.
Yeah.
Right. You can send us a message. Well, somebody sent us a message.
Yeah.
What I found out is we can't respond. It's for incoming messages only. So I'm going to do this on a couple of episodes. So to the person that sent us the message about loving our Boston episode and all that great stuff, we got your message and I'm acknowledging it. We just cannot reply. That is not a limitation of us. It is a limitation of the podcast provider that is providing the messaging system. So I'll probably do this on at least one more episode. Hopefully he or she hears it, but we did get your message and thank you so much for the feedback. So if you want to give us feedback where we can't respond, so if you want to go off on us or curse us out and we can't give you anything back, go ahead and hit that message us button because it works and we'll get the message, we'll get the feedback. But we won't be able to respond unless you hit us up on one of our socials like Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube. So that's the public service announcement, I think.
Well, it's wonderful to know we have a fan, right?
We've got a lot of we've got so many fans. We're worldwide. We're on the charts everywhere. Come on. It's time to own it. Time to own this shit.
I have. Whatever happened to that other fan that we had long time ago? We had a fan. Yeah. I think year one.
We had our original,
remember?
Our original fan.
Captain, what was his name? Captain.
I don't know.
We did have one original fan, but now we've got many, and we're so grateful for everybody that joins us. And if you're new, hopefully you'll become a fan as well. There's a lot of other interesting episodes you can check out. They're all sitting in the back room. They're in boxes. You have to open them up, but you can sift through. Browsing is free, so go check out everything we've got there. Let's get to the guests. First up, from the set of Clean and Sober, Christy Cuomo. She's working on the remake.
Well,
welcome aboard, Christy.
It was Michael Keaton's birthday recently, so I'm definitely
Michael Douglas Keaton.
There you go.
Michael Douglas Keaton.
He's changing
his name.
He's trying to just bring it back.
He's been in the business for 80 years, and now all of a sudden he wants to be Michael Douglas Keaton. Anyway, whatever. That's all fine. Our next guest. This is going to be confusing.
Whoa.
What?
So I can send you messages and you can't respond back?
On that, with that particular function.
It's nice to know for me.
It is, yeah. People can just yell at us or do whatever.
So I can say whatever I want to, and you can't answer me.
Right.
Well, we would know it's you, so we.
I know, but it's still nice.
In this case, the person that sent this message did not give us any identifying information, which is fine. But it was either way. We'll take.
Well, here's a question. I mean, you sent me the message via email.
Yeah, I sent it to you. Yes.
And on the bottom, I could have, it says reply. Now, if I had tried to reply, would I have been?
Yeah, because
I would have been able to reply.
I sent you a screenshot of the email, but the email comes from a no reply address. So even if you reply, it doesn't go anywhere. Next up on our guest, we've got that all the technology straightened out. Everybody's seeing how the sausage is made on the show behind the scenes. Next guest up, Mr. Christopher Clark.
Hey, how you doing? Good to be back.
Sir?
I'm doing well. Doing well.
To have you back. I think the last time we spoke to you was Asia.
No, Stevie Wonder, Intervision.
Intervision. This is going to be a very, very interesting episode because we've got Christy and Chris. So Eric and I are going to have to enunciate who we're speaking to.
Or just say our full names.
I'll
just call you Cuomo.
That's
You know,
fine.
and
I'll
call you
respond to
Clark.
Cuomo.
How about that?
They're
Hey,
both
There you
Clark.
go.
CCs also. They're both
Oh my
CCs.
God! You're a CC too.
I
Yeah.
am.
Oh, here we go.
Heir to the Clark Bar fortune of
I
candy
wish.
bar. Before we get any
we do
further,
a Christmas picture with those candy bars. So
oh, you did? See, it makes that you've got the brand. You've got the brand recognition built
there
in.
you go.
I own a
Before we
bridge.
go any further, we will get to what we're here for. But as of on the day of the recording of this episode, one of the greatest actors in any generation, we should be blessed that we were alive during this when this person was active. Is James Earl Jones?
You
Yeah.
gave me so much shit when I
Okay,
text you
and then
about
I
this.
said fine,
You said I could bring up James Earl Jones.
but you didn't. So
It was in your
90,
introduction.
93 years old. Wow.
Yeah.
What a career.
What a
Amazing
life, what a career. He was a hell of an actor. Not just, I mean, everybody's like the voice of Darth Vader, the voice of Darth Vader. The man did a lot more than that, folks.
Oh, yeah. A lot of Broadway productions.
Sure did.
Yep.
Dr. Strangelove.
Yeah, that was his debut.
Yep.
So
Dr. Strangelove, and of course we celebrated him on our Field of Dreams episode, and of course, yes, the voice of our childhood of Darth Vader. I mean that character would is half of that character is the iconography, is the look, but the other half is the voice, and George Lucas was brilliant when he said, "I'm going to put a person in the costume, but I need a different voice for it." And it was brilliant, and the two of those things together just made for movie magic. Of course, Mufasa from The Lion King as well. He has that voice, and the voice of CNN. This is CNN.
Yep.
So
hey, Dulce Doom from Conan the Barbarian. How about that? There's one for you.
He
the
did
man
a lot
had
of stuff.
weight. The man had gravitas. He was.
That's what I said to Dean. Gravitas.
Yeah.
He's a loss.
He really did,
He's
and
definitely a loss.
he had a certain nobility about him as well. He was just a guy that was just like I think the gravitas word carries that. He just had this presence, is what that's what it is. A presence.
He seemed regal.
Yeah, just
But for him to tell his story, he was. He had struggles with speech. He just wasn't a good speaker at first, right? I mean, he had problems, even talking, and now you believe that,
which is insane.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's this one hurts for sure. Yeah. So,
but 93,
God
good
bless
life.
him. Yep.
Good life.
Yeah. We should all be so lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good life.
We absolutely. We're missing him already.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're here today or tonight to talk about a music episode. If you didn't catch it from the intro, the band is Oasis, and the album is Definitely Maybe, which is their debut. Mr. Christopher Clark is like, hey, these guys are touring again, and it's the 30th anniversary of their album, so maybe you yahoos should get off your ass and do an episode. So I'm like, all right, well, if you put it that way. And he sent it in a message, so I could have replied, but I didn't. He didn't do it anonymously.
No, I did not. I'm excited we're doing this record. This is one of those really great records from the 90s. It's kind of the antithesis of a lot of what was going on at the time, with grunge and a little bit more of like downer kind of music. And this is like upbeat and poppy and really rocking. And to me, just by a hair, I think it's their best record. I think it edges out Definitely Maybe just by a hair, because it's got a little bit more.
This is Definitely Maybe.
Not Definitely Maybe. It edges out What's the Story, Morning Glory by a hair, because it's got a little bit more of an edge and a little more raw.
Christy's making a face, so we'll see. Christy, Chris, did you ever see Oasis?
I didn't. I came to Oasis. My experience with them is like everybody else who was a junior in high school when when What's the Story came out. I had it. We all listened to it. We all knew the singles and stuff, but I wasn't really a huge Oasis fan until my younger brother and a friend of ours who was a little bit older than us, where we used to work, kind of they were both really into Oasis. They'd seen them a bunch of times, and
Mhm.
as I got a little bit older, that's when I went back and really went down the wormhole of their catalog beyond just like the singles and the one record that everybody and their mother had when I was 16, and I really grew to appreciate them.
All right, let me. Well, Christy, you saw them. You saw them back in the day.
I saw them at Oasis. So it was, oh Jesus, what was this? The mountain we went to? It was in New York. I went with a
Hunter.
bunch of friends. It might have been Hunter. And we skied all day. And then Oasis was there, and they put on a show, and it was a thing. You bought a ticket, and it was Oasis, and I saw them for that. And that must have been in like the, What's the Story? Morning Glory came out in '95, so it was either
Mhm.
probably it could have been '96. I'm not sure.
So right in their
Um,
heyday. I mean, absolutely.
but unlike Chris, What's the Story? Morning Glory for me like was one of the greatest albums.
Mhm.
I loved that album. Definitely, maybe not a huge fan of. And if you listen back to any of these podcasts when we talk about music, a big thing for me is lyrics and poetry. And there's not a lot of depth in any of these lyrics for me.
Mhm.
So I never really connected all that much. Live
Yeah.
Forever was probably the best song for me in my youth. Although I kind of, there's another song which I'll get to later that I really enjoy, maybe even more than that. But
Okay.
What's the Story? Morning Glory for me, like when Noel started getting into more of the ballad writing, and to some it might have been more commercial, but uh, that's when I really was like, oh, these guys
Mhm.
are like, this is a really good band.
Yeah.
And then with all their bickering, it kind of went to shit. But
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
all right, we will get to all that, but first we have to give you the stats like we do every episode. So this is probably the second longest time we've gone without giving stats, but we'll probably break that record eventually somewhere else. Anyway, this was released in August of 1994, produced by Owen Morris, Oasis, Mark Coyle, and or Dave Batchelor. That's a whole story in and of itself. There were 4 singles released. None of them really did anything stateside as far as like the Billboard Hot 100. I mean, some of them were on the rock chart, et cetera, but they were all big UK hits. So it was Supersonic, Shaker Maker, Live Forever, Cigarettes and Alcohol were the 4 singles. All the songs are written by Noel Gallagher, and we'll get to that too because he's got sticky fingers.
yes, he does.
he sure does.
It only hit number 58 on Billboard, believe it or not. It did go 1 times platinum in the United States, which means over 1 million copies, but in the UK it went 9 times platinum. Again, these guys, and it's one of the, I think at the time it was the fastest selling debut album when it came out. I think it's probably been eclipsed by something else, but Oasis literally took the UK by storm in a way that the Beatles did when the Beatles first started, and there was there's a lot of comparisons between them. Although I don't always hear it, I hear other
I don't either.
I
No.
hear other things, but I don't hear Beatles. They were formed in Manchester in 1991. You know, the main, not to slight everybody else, but we're going to be talking about Liam and Noel Gallagher pretty much. You know, is the centerpiece of this story? How could it not be? Like Christy alluded to, with all their antics and all the bullshit between them, all the other members unfortunately kind of fade into the background.
Yeah.
This is actually the only record they record with the original lineup.
Yeah, because they got rid of the drummer after this, and then
Yep. And then Bonehead and Giggsy left after the 3rd album.
Yeah, so then the cycle started. So Chris, you kind of alluded to, you started the conversation with this is different than grunge, and this is considered Britpop. I was looking to see what this is and what Britpop actually is. It in the United States, I would have called this alternative. A little, I would have said this was grunge, but it was kind of alternative pop / rock. It certainly wasn't grunge, but it's easy to see that it would get caught in the wave of all that music activity that was going on. But this was something different. What was going on in the UK, right?
Right. Well, to me, I mean, you think about it, a lot of the bands that they probably get associated with are, the Manchester bands. I don't know if you compare them to be like the sound of like the Smiths, but they often get lumped in with the Smiths because they're both from
Mhm.
Manchester. You've got bands like the Stone Roses and Primal Scream and those kinds of bands, which are a little
Blur were their contemporaries.
Blur. Yeah, right.
Blur.
And they're all like real rock and roll bands, but not like but they have a little bit more of a poppy feel to them than I think some of the other stuff that was really popular at the time. But that kind of stuff was really big in England. So I mean, which is why like even today, Oasis is a stadium band in England, where I don't see how they're supposed to play MetLife Stadium in New Jersey when they come to the United States. I don't know how that's actually going to happen because like they never played any place that big in the '90s. So are they really?
You
Is there
don't
really
think they'll
going
be
to be?
able to pull it off?
I don't know, man. I just to me like they never played any place bigger than the Garden. I think my brother saw them on a tour. They played Roseland, which is what like 1,000,
It's
2,000
tiny.
people.
Roseland Ballroom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I don't.
Eric and I saw Huey Lewis in the News
We
there.
did in a packed. It was
The
packed in
heart of
there.
rock and roll was still beating.
Yeah.
It was before they got big. Yeah, we'll see. That part of the like I said, inspiration for doing this episode is they've for years been at each other's throats, or just tossing hand grenades at each other in interviews and just really dragging each other. They don't seem to really like each other, but out of nowhere, all of a sudden, hey, we're gonna we're gonna get back together. We're gonna do a tour in 2025.
I,
Um,
I mean, I
and
heard
and
somewhere
Liam,
that
God,
I heard Noel said he owed that Noel has like has a divorce settlement, and that might be why because he owes millions of dollars in a divorce settlement, and now all
I
of a
thought it was
sudden,
reverse. I thought Liam was the one who
oh,
was
is it
like
Liam?
struggling financially, and he kept asking Noel, like, "Can you help me out?" And he's like, "No."
Well,
I thought,
maybe
but
be
one of them,
I could be wrong. I know that someone needed money. I do know that for
yeah.
sure.
And
Yeah.
Eric, when you need money, what do? You reform and you go back to the well, right?
Of course. Yeah.
So would this be something you'd be interested in seeing, Eric? Would you be interested
No.
in seeing them? No, not at all.
No.
Not even
I
out of
to be
curiosity.
honest with you, I was never really a big fan
Uh huh.
of Oasis. I mean, the music to me is it's I think it's definitely of its time.
Hmm.
I prefer Blur. If I had to make a comparison to Blur, seems to have the collectability. Oasis, to me, everything that sounds the same. It's that whiny, kind of thing, and it was never on my radar. I mean, the hits were, some of the songs were great, but then when as soon as one of them, I don't know who said it. It was either Noel or Liam said they were better than everybody else.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, fuck you, we're better than the Beatles. No,
That's
I don't think so.
the kiss of death.
That's that you draw the. I mean, everybody is an asshole one time or another. I guess it's just the business. But I mean, these guys seem to really like pile it on, and they just one thing after another. It kind of reminded me of like Axl Rose and his antics and those kind of things, and just they were curmudgeon even before they got old.
Yeah.
They were
Impressive
just
band
talking.
death.
Yeah, they was talking shit about everybody, and it was just like, wow. To
Yeah.
me, the music just does not back up what they're saying. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but that's just
Yeah,
and I
no,
know
it's an interesting thing. They
you know
almost
what I
seem
mean.
like soccer hooligans the way they act. Like they just
Yeah,
are just like really awful people. But when they got on stage, there was something there. I mean, Christy, what drew you to even the later stuff when you got into them? Was it the because there's a couple of different things about Oasis. Liam Gallagher has a very particular way of singing, and after listening to this album a whole lot, part of it is Johnny Rotten. He actually sings the way Johnny Rotten would enunciate and stretch
yeah.
parts of words and vowels and stretch them into almost a different word. Liam very much does that, which makes it a very particular style of singing. So was that what grabbed you?
No, actually, on this particular album, it kind of annoyed me. The the dragging out of every syllable of every last word.
Yeah.
I with the exception of Married with Children, he
Uh-huh.
does in every song. And it becomes a little nauseating. And that might be because added with the I was a very big fan, and to this day, I'm still a very big fan of their second album.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What's the Story, Morning Glory? Like I like it. I actually think the writing has more depth. It's more ballady. It just is a better album in my personal opinion. But even with all that, like once the drama started with these two,
Mm.
it was exhausting. Like even as like an 18-year-old kid, I'm just like I don't care. Like you have all these other bands and you're listening to them and you're enjoying their music. And I'm 18 years old. I don't need your bullshit
Mhm.
like on top of like I just want to enjoy the music. Like
Right.
I just don't want it to be part of the story.
Yeah.
And so after that album, I honestly I kind of lost interest in them. Still
Mhm.
will listen to the album, still love the album, but
Mm.
it's just one of those things that I don't know.
Yeah, it's too bad, Chris, when the outside stuff eclipses the music because this album, I never really I knew like 2 or 3 of the songs on this album, but never really gave it a listen. And this is really a sonic. This album is like a sonic attack, which
Yeah, it
is
is.
which is
Mm.
definitely different from their follow up. So to Christie's point, like this is like bombastic guitars, and part of
Yeah.
it. Before I kick it over to you, Chris, part of it was the problem with the producers is they had worked with this guy Batchelor,
Yep.
David Batchelor
Yeah,
initially.
and it didn't work out. Yeah.
They hated everything he was doing. So then they went back and they had an opportunity to re-record. They weren't that thrilled with what that guy did. So Noel Gallagher, he writes all the songs and plays guitar. He kind of put a whole bunch of guitars on top of everything to
Mhm.
kind of what he thought was fixing it. Because they're like, we're going to have to use what we have because we're not going to get a third chance to re-record this. And then they gave it to another producer, and he said, "We got to take all of the shit that Noel put on. It's too much. We got to take it off." And they did kind of have to do a little surgery on some of the stuff.
I mean, I personally I like the guitar sound on the record. I think it's one of the things that I like. It's just I like that. I like his distorted tone.
Mhm.
I don't know. I like it. To me, it's one of the things that I know it's all kind of like pushed. It's almost like what's the word, redlined a little bit. But I think to me that contributes to the sound. I know it's a little. It's definitely not as melodic or as like built around like
Mhm.
more traditional song. To me, it's just it's almost got like a punk rock vibe, and that's what I like about it.
Mhm.
That to me,
Yeah.
this record has a punk edge to it, and part of what contributes to that for me is the guitar tone. And honestly, Tony McCarroll, who's the drummer who didn't make it into the second record, I think his drumming, as basic and as simple as it is, it drives all those songs, and it's that driving rhythm and the guitar tone
Mhm.
that to me I really enjoy this record. I could listen to it wherever the needle falls.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think that's it makes a nice counterpoint that this album was kind of like that. Like, and I noticed the same too. Same thing that Christy said is you don't really get anything super different until you get to the very last song, "Married with Children." So a lot of this album is very much in a certain way that they're trying to literally attack each song. Like that was the thing. Is kind of it's bombastic. It's in your face. It's like a wall of guitar sound and distortion. And then Liam on top of that with his very interesting way of singing makes for a very interesting combination. And then to Christie's point, the second album, they would start to refine that and say, okay, what can we do that's different? But as a first album statement, it's pretty bold because it's right in the whole thing is right in your face,
Mhm.
right? They're kind of like here, like almost like kicking the door in and saying, here we are.
But without depth. Like when you listen to the
Mhm.
again, from my perspective as someone who writes, who lyrically like looks at the music, the lyrics as poetry before anything else.
Sure.
When you read the lyrics or you look at it, it's almost nonsensical. It's there's no depth to it. Like it's almost
Mhm.
like they just sat down and and just threw lyrics together. And one of the things I found somewhat confusing is when I was looking up the album, one of the things the critics would say is that this was such a different type of album because it was much more optimistic and lighter than, I guess, because grunge was really coming into play here. Like you had Nirvana, who he criticized. Was it right after Cobain died? I mean, the arrogance of them.
Yeah.
It's just
Gallagher's. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, yeah, I mean, the lyrics on this album are definitely more kind of like stream of consciousness and almost trippy inside. Like,
is it stream of consciousness, or is it just like it's almost like the opposite for me, where I appreciate the actual guitar and the music of it, which is what's catchy. The lyrics itself could just go away. Like they mean nothing. And that's a weird thing for me as someone who really will grasp onto the lyrics of an album.
Yeah. Chris, you had something to say?
I was going to say, but by the same turn, like, to me, there's almost like, you got to think they're two guys. I mean, the whole band came from Manchester. They're all working class guys. They're all, kind of like, this is like their one shot and they kick it open. And to me, almost like the first track is a mission statement. This is what tonight I'm a rock and roll star. I'm going to get on stage and I'm going to rock you. And this is what we're going for. And this is our, and for, I mean, it's not like the most deep thought, but it's the idea of like, this is Madison Square Garden and I'm going to come on stage and I'm going to show you who we are and what we're about. And we're here to give you a good time and rock and roll. And
yeah, this is going to be a straight ahead rock album.
Right. Like you almost from the open, to me, it's one of the best opening tracks of any record I've ever heard, just because it's you right from the beginning, you know what this is going to be. And it's like, all right, yeah, I'm ready to take this ride with you.
Yeah,
if you like
the first song, right, Eric? If you like the first song, you're going to kind of, that's what you're going to get.
It definitely has I could see that, to your point, Chris, the sort of everyman, sort of blue collar type of thing, that being from where they're from. And to Christy's point, she was saying that, it has not depth. For me, it's the music too. I mean, the music for me doesn't have the depth. Because it's just basically, to me, the songs just kind of blur into one another, and it all has the same chord structure.
Blur. I see what you did there.
But because I tend to like music first. Something needs to grab me melodically, rhythmically, and then I could dive into lyrics and then really get blown away by the whole.
We're so opposite.
The whole package.
We're so opposite.
I'm more like Eric. Yeah. That's how I am. That's how I approach that.
But this album just, I'm sorry, but it just, I mean, I get it. I get the I guess the vibe they were going for. But I just, aside from, we're talking about the last track. To me, the last track sounds like the Chili Peppers.
Actually, for me, it sounded like "Where Is My Mind" by the Pixies. That the way the guitar.
Yeah, I would actually lean more towards that.
And we're gonna get there
because they slowed it down, and the Pixie song has a. But we keep bringing up Blur, and for me, was the Verve. Like, I think is that their voices. Like, you could listen to Bittersweet Symphony and almost mistaken it for Liam, in my opinion. Like, their voices are so similar.
Well, I'm not saying Blur is that they're necessarily.
Blur is their major, like, when you do comparisons of Oasis, Blur is
to me. I mean, they're the definition of Britpop right there. Blur is like they take it to that level of just sort of jangly, good time pop. It's just straightforward. And considering what Damon Albarn would create after that, which is Gorillaz. I mean, that whole business with that. It's not surprising. When you listen to their stuff, it's some of it can get dark. I think they made the one dark album, but it was, for the most part, but Oasis just kind of cuts you to the quick. Like Dean was saying, like it really, sonically, it does get your attention. I will say that. However, my attention span, unfortunately, did not.
Yeah, let me address.
Like their second album.
I'm going to address that because what's that?
I do. I do like their second album, and I think
better than their first.
I think I agree with you. If I had to choose, I would prefer. I would go with the second.
Because I don't want to be like us shitting all over Oasis, because I actually genuinely like Oasis. I do.
Chris is like, this isn't the episode I signed up for.
I just don't particularly like their first album, but their second album, I like them, and I think they're talented. So I don't want it to be like, oh, we're all like down on Oasis. We just happen to be talking about this.
No, let me put a rib. Let me put a ribbon on it then, because when the first and second time I listened to this album, what I came away with was this was made in the CD era. Okay. And I think this album would have been, and it's a great album, but it would have been a superb album minus like 2 songs. Like if this was really a true like LP length, which it is, it's 51 minutes, but I think pulling out like just two songs kind of, I think, would tighten up this album and make it a little less what Eric's saying. Because I found that too. I'm kind of like, okay, but after you go, when you give it a few listens, you start to hear the different nuances and you start to pick up on those different things, right? I mean, Chris, to the casual listener, you're going to get bombarded if someone's going to go listen to this that never did before. They're going to be like, oh shit, like, okay, it's kind of in that trajectory, almost like an AC/DC album, where when you listen to AC/DC, you know what you're going to get, and there's not really going to be a variance. And I don't mean that as a bad or a good thing.
No. I mean, like I said, I liked a lot of that kind of like the kind of music that's on this record. I listened to a lot of that growing up, and I love punk music. I love hardcore music. I love a lot of that. I love metal. So like a lot of that distorted guitar and driving music, that's kind of what grabs me. And then there's also, to me, a pop sensibility to it as well, which sucked me in even further, because then it appeals to that part of my musical interest as well. So like, to me, it has elements of everything that I like. And again, I'm more like Eric, I'm more music than I am lyrics. So to me, it's like kind of like something I could sing along and like, pogo to, and I'm good. So like, but so that's why this one, to me, it's just, it's a good rock and roll. To me, it's a great rock and roll album, and there's nothing more to it. It's just, it's good. If I want to crank something up and go for a drive and really rock out, this would be an album that I would pop on.
Yeah. I mean, tracks like Up in the Sky, Columbia, Bring It On Down. I mean, there's a lot on here. And as I listened to it more, I was able to kind of really discern. But I get where Eric is coming from, and I get where Christy's coming from, because I was kind of in that in the very beginning. I'm like, wow, this is kind of overload. But again, they were kind of almost stuck with the stuff that they had recorded and the way they recorded it, that they had to kind of almost work with what they had. So the fact that they were able to kind of really pull out such a strong statement out of the ashes of 2 attempts at recording the album is really says something for, and Liam, I mean, and Noel Gallagher is one of the first to admit that he's not the greatest guitar player. He's not the most proficient. He freely admits that he steals, and when he does steal, then he says he goes the full route. Someone said this sounded like the Kinks. Okay, well, now I'm really going to make it sound like the Kinks. Like, he goes full on, to the point where they were sued by Coca-Cola for the song Shaker Maker.
As they should have been.
Yeah. Which if people of a certain age listening to this episode, if you remember the Coca-Cola commercials, I'd like to teach the world to sing, by originally done by the New Seekers, and then Coca-Cola had the lyrics redone. Listen to the opening verse of Shaker Maker. It's basically that whole, I'd like to teach the world to sing, and Coca-Cola's like, you know what, that's a little too close.
Yeah.
And they sued him, and Coca-Cola won. They had to pay him.
Didn't they get sued by multiple people?
They got, and then if we move, well, like I said, the Married with Children, to me, the beginning sounds like Where's My Mind by the Pixies. Cigarettes and Alcohol. It's got so much distortion and guitar on it that you can't tell, but he stole the riff from Bang a Gong by T-Rex. Is on there. It's Eric, it's a Wilbury. It's buried in the mix.
Yeah,
if you have to listen to it, but it is so distorted but it's bang a gong. Go ahead, Chris.
I was gonna say the opening riff. I mean, when that song kicks in, you could. I mean, if you know rock and roll, I don't care how buried it is or how layered it is, you could tell right away it's T-Rex. But then they even do it on the next record. They steal from Pachelbel. Don't Look Back in Anger is Pachelbel's canon.
They steal from Stevie Wonder. They stole Signed, Sealed, Delivered. I saw a video. It's like 10 songs, and they actually in the video show like the actual chart of like, and they're almost like note for note, maybe up a step, but it's all the same melody and everything. So
yeah.
So the
Noel is very like, I don't give a shit.
No,
like.
The question is, because of Noel's arrogance, which we've already acknowledged, does he think that he can take the original riff and make it better? Is he so arrogant to think he can make?
No, he just doesn't care. Everything I've seen, he just doesn't care that he's stealing.
So you don't think is that he thinks he can make a Stevie Wonder riff better? You just think he doesn't give a shit.
No, I think I saw an interview. Basically, his attitude is it's like all there for the taking. Kind of,
if you pay for them,
paraphrasing,
sure
but he doesn't think, I'm improving it. He's just like, this, I like we all did though. We're like we've talked about it before. Before I get to you, Chris, we've talked about people having influences, right? And then they put them through their process, and it comes out. This is different. This is him just wholesale taking a riff, even if it might be his favorite riff. Go ahead, Chris.
I was gonna say, but is he really the first to have done that? I mean,
no, of course not.
Right. So, Jimmy Page is probably even more guilty of it than he is. Like, if you look at Led Zeppelin's,
but I guess it's all in the attitude of how you approach it, right?
He's got songwriting credit on Dazed and Confused, and he did not write that song, but it's he's the writing credit on it. So it's
I guess it's maybe it's a little bit of the smugness that he has about it. Like, I did it.
To his credit, I'm
going to do it again, and I don't care. Like,
at least he acknowledges it. Right?
He does it, which is very.
He acknowledges it, but then he turns around and says, "We're the best band out there. Yeah. We're better than the Beatles." And like, how the hell, where's your scruples, man? Where's your, I'm not. This is definitely a really
sold a lot of records.
Well, this is a really great case for separating. For separating, the art from the artist, right? I mean, we talked about that as well. Mm-hmm. Like, sometimes people are just so, you were so sick of the drama and the bullshit behind the scenes that you're just like, when you find this stuff out, unfortunately, not a lot of people do. Like, they don't really care about that stuff. They just like the music. I wish sometimes we could be that way, right, Dean? I mean, it's just, but we, you and I are gluttons for punishment in that, I guess, in that respect, because we love to dive in. We love to find out where this stuff came from, all this kind of thing. And this is why we're doing this podcast. But but sometimes you're just so like the arrogance and the attitudes of certain artists that just, And I said before, to me, the music just, you don't, especially, what we've just talked about, it just doesn't back it up. If you were great,
I don't know,
if you're truly great, and if you think the music really backed you up and what you're saying, then I can make, then it could be an argument there could be made. Yeah. But on the other hand, to me, it's just not there.
Yeah, I think they back it up. I mean, I don't know. A song like "Live Forever" is just an amazing tune, and it really is emblematic of what Oasis is, right? And I think what we're bemoaning is if Oasis just kind of tried to stay a little more truer to themselves.
Yes.
What would that be? Put the influences through your process and spit it out. Because like I said, there's stuff on here that is wholly their own. Like, it's totally their own, like "Live Forever" and "Columbia." And like I said, "Supersonic." I mean, I don't want to drag these guys, because of their attitudes. They're still made an album that was the fastest selling in UK history at that time. So that has to count for something, because it's not a gimmick. This isn't like a pop album like Thriller where all of a sudden everybody grabbed onto it. This was an album that didn't do well in the States, but somehow grabbed on in the UK and became a monster. So it wasn't on the back of all the hype like Thriller was or Born in the USA was, where it just kind of steamrolled. It never really hit the USA that way until their next album, until they were kind of really start to then evolve. But I think as a statement, even with the spot, I mean, we could pull out ELO and do the same thing. I mean, we could pull out everybody, and we've done it with Genesis too, Eric. We've said, oh, that's from, so they're all guilty of it. It's just
of course.
I guess maybe it's the brashness with which they are like, yes, and like, yeah, so type of thing, and everybody else is just kind of like, well, we'll make it go away.
A lot of the artists that we love often would say we're paying tribute to the bands that we love. This is my homage to whoever, whatever. Yeah, not from these guys. They're like, no,
they're like, and we'll do it again. Go ahead, Christy.
Go ahead.
Speaking of Genesis.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. You know this story, right?
He didn't have a lot of kind words to say about Phil Collins.
No, nobody loves nobody. Everybody hates Phil Collins.
Yeah, but
I think he called him the C word. Like I think he literally
he called him the Antichrist.
Antichrist of music.
Did he call the Antichrist to music?
Yes.
Yeah, like and Dean, like I'm not saying that. Like, I don't like this album. I love their second album.
Mm-hmm.
This album to me is okay. I'm not saying that they're not warranted in the pop culture, or like they don't have a place. They certainly do.
Mm-hmm.
And they came out from nowhere. Like they weren't, like you said, with Thriller and everything else, but they just, it's their arrogance and the bickering just really was exhausting. Even to a teenager, and just to be like, we're better than these people, we're better than that people, and they weren't even established yet, and they're like saying they're better than everyone, and that kind of is like when you see someone who's, whether you're into men or women, like a really good looking person, and then you open their mouth and they're just kind of an asshole. You're like, oh, they're not that good looking anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it is with an Oasis. It's like, if they didn't open their mouth, they probably would have been more talented. Does that make sense?
Well, not that they wouldn't be more talented, but they'd
be liked more.
We would be talking more about the music and less about their
attitudes.
Yeah,
see, that's the thing right there. Yeah. Dean hit it right on the head. It's like,
and Chris wants to get to the music. He's chomping at.
I mean, nothing to apologize for. I think this is a good conversation. I mean, for me though, what I was going to say is, I mean, Ray Davies and Dave Davies, Mick and Keith.
Yeah.
I mean, in the 80s, you had George Lynch and Don Dokken. I mean, and those guys got a lot of it.
Townsend and Daltrey.
I mean, they're not the only two. And I mean, and the arrogance to me, at least when I was, and even now, I mean, I was having a conversation with my younger brother the other night about Oasis, because I was going to come on and do this, is the idea, like, I found it funny in the 90s. Like, I thought it was hilarious that these, like, where do these guys get off? To me, it was I mean, it was amusing. Like, and like to watch the one guy playing on MTV Unplugged while Liam's up in the balcony saying, I can't sing because of my throat, and he's smoking cigarettes and drinking.
Yeah,
they had
heckling his brother when he was supposed to be on stage is one of the most awful things ever.
They had a tape where they were arguing about the Beatles, and it went into the charts in England. I mean, that to me, all that shit. And then my brother went to see them when he saw them at Roseland. Liam and Noel were fighting on stage. Liam put his tambourine on his head and just stood in Noel's face while Noel was playing. They were just fucking with each other the whole time. Like, I mean, to some, I can see Christy's point where it's really annoying, but it caught attention. It made people see who these people were, and I don't know. To me, it was comedic. It was so it was to such an extreme that it was absurd. Like, it was almost amusing to watch because it was so ridiculous.
And here's the thing: is Chrissy, hold on one second. Here's the thing: is it's not a gimmick.
No, they really do.
They really hate each other.
Like, you never hear like, well, these guys are actually really nice, and they're it's kind of like
weren't invited to each other's weddings.
Yeah,
genuinely hate each other.
Yeah. I got one more story. Another Noel story. Since this is going to be what this episode is probably going to be about. Is they were getting an award. They won an award, and Michael Hutchence from INXS was the presenter. He gave him the award, and Noel takes the award and he points it at Michael Hutchence, and he says a has-been shouldn't be given an award to will-be's.
That's way too arrogant for me.
Or to
Just
like
way
a
too
has-been, a
arrogant.
has-been shouldn't be given an award to gonna-be's.
Oh my God.
Like
See?
Michael,
Come on.
Michael Hutchins? Are you fucking kidding me?
Come
man.
on.
In the 90s, INXS were still huge.
Around the world, they were absolutely.
Like again, like I think that's the way these guys really are, though. So it's not an act to like provoke. That's their natural like raconteurs, they're natural like provokers. Like they do it to each other, they do it to whoever, and they don't care. And you know what? That might be a little refreshing. That they're not trying to put up this facade that then falls.
Right, because how many rock stars are actually like that?
Yeah, because then we're disappointed to find out how they really are. These guys are like, here, this is the way we are. We are jerks. We can be jerks. We're most of the time.
Okay,
but here's some great music that kind of almost seems like what's real? Is the music real, or are the brothers real? Like it kind of makes you think because.
Okay,
they
Dean.
make fantastic music.
Or do you get one without the other? Like, do you get like is the fact that they're such dicks to each other part of like that I don't give a shit attitude is what drives what they do? We're going to put out what we put out, and this is who we are, and then they deliver. I mean, you've seen them live. I know anybody I've ever who've seen them live, so they're fantastic. I mean, and I think it's part of that like reckless, I don't care attitude that makes rock and roll so beautiful. I think is part of what and I'm not saying that they're good people. I'm just saying that I think that's what drives their talents.
It's a good point, Chris.
When you have this drama, let's take Guns N' Roses, Dean. How annoyed were you?
Guns N' Roses.
How annoyed were you when Axl Rose made you wait? How long? How long did he make you wait before he came on stage?
Yeah. And is it worth hours?
Is it worth it? Like when he comes on, aren't you like fucking like? Are you fucking kidding me? Like, why do I have to wait for you for 5 hours to come on stage?
I can't remember that far back.
But it's kind of the same thing. It's like
I get what you're saying.
With Oasis, with the drama, with Guns N' Roses, with the waiting, it's like at what point is it like just fucking play your music because that's what I'm here for. Like
at least they show up on time and play the music.
Like,
there you go. So their squabbles are internal to Chris's point.
No, they just fight on stage. They don't do it backstage.
They don't involve the audience. They don't.
And at least they still do. And they. My brother will tell you that show where he saw them arguing. He says it's in his top 5 shows that he's ever seen.
Really? See, you get something memorable, and
it is something to remember. Yeah, I give it that. That's
And Liam has a very particular way of singing live. He puts his hands behind his back and he sings up into a microphone. So they're as a visual thing. They have a lot of interesting parts to them, right? And I think with this album, I think you want to, because they were fighting even during this period. But I think we need to kind of separate that. Like we did spend a lot of time. We spent a lot of time talking about that. But I don't want people to not check this album out. Because of it, maybe in spite of it, you should check it out. Maybe you should say, you know what, these guys sound like awful people, or they just can't get along. But like I said, when they go into the studio, it seems like they're able to. You would think that the stuff would be rambling, like meaning like directionless and kind of like where is this going? As bombastic as it is, each song is very focused. It's got a point to it, even if they're very similar sounding. And like I said, for a debut album statement, I think it's very strong from them. And to Christy's point, like we said earlier, they would continue to develop and make stuff like Champagne Supernova and all those great other different style songs that Noel would, because he was the principal songwriter on the first 3 albums, that they would, despite all that, they would develop, and they still had the higher vision of making this music, and they held on to that as long as they could, despite themselves, to continue to making music and battle. A lot of bands would not make it past, these guys are throwing fists and they're brothers and they're not really liking each other. A lot of bands wouldn't make it past that. They would just destroy each other. So
it's definitely an album worth listening to. Yeah. And I would say if you're going to listen to this album and then listen to their second album to see that growth and to see how they developed, even with all of the animosity between them, with all of the the resentment and the anger, because they genuinely wanted to be successful despite themselves. Like
Yeah.
they just couldn't get over themselves. They're a good band. I'm not saying that. It's
Yeah,
just
there's definitely a hunger on this album, right, Chris? That
yes,
I think that's what it is this album is heavy. It's heavy. It's in your face, and like you said, the first track is kind of like, yeah, here we are, right? Swinging fists and everything. But and again, you don't really get that. You don't get that conflict on the record, though, right, Chris? I mean, it's behind the scenes, but it's nowhere. It's not present on the.
So to me, there's a go for the throat vibe to it, and to
Mhm.
your point about it being behind the scenes, if anybody's interested in really learning the history of the band and where they came from and how they evolved, it's on HBO Max right now. A24 put out a documentary called Supersonic,
Mhm.
and it's about the history of the band up to where they played. What is it? Hyde Park, I believe, in England, right after What's the Story, Morning Glory came out. I think it was 2.5 million requests for tickets or something crazy, and it was like 250,000 people each night. And so it's like the evolution of the band to that point. And one of the things in that documentary that Noel said is, we hate each other, but when he sings, he's singing it with all of his heart, because I know that because he's my brother. Like there's this like brotherly connection that Noel has the ability to write these songs that Liam is able to deliver in such a way that delivers them the way Noel would want his songs to be delivered. Like they have that knowledge of each other as sharing the same DNA. And to me, what I think is cool about Oasis is, as good as definitely maybe is What's the Story, Morning Glory, to me is, like I said, I like this album like by a hair a little bit better. But What's the Story, Morning Glory is an amazing record too, but it's not the same. And then when you get into the next record, which is Be Here Now has a lot of the same sensibilities of the first two albums, but there's something different there. And then when you get onto Standing on the Shoulders of Giants, there's something unique about every one of their records. But when you hear it, you know it's Oasis, and I think that's what's very cool about them.
Yeah, and Liam has said about Noel, he goes, "There's not a better songwriter out there." So they do have that recognition for each other and that mutual respect. It just seems like as personalities, they don't get along. And Noel said the only time we ever talk is when we're on stage. Like we don't really, but at least I don't know if that's changed now. But yeah, and I think it's a curious. There's no other band like this, Eric, right? That that fights to this extreme and has the success to match, right? That's usually that's the death knell of a band is like they're going to about to go down in flames. But Eric, they're kind of they were
They own it.
impervious to that. Yeah, they were impervious to it.
You said it, beginning of the episode. They definitely own the drama, and yeah, there's something about it that just you could admire that, I guess.
Yeah,
Their perseverance, their whatever, but yeah, I mean, what more can you say? I mean, it's just it is what it is. And to Chris's point, I really like what you said about that's fucking rock and roll, man. I mean, it is. I mean, it's a lot of our favorite bands there's just some kind of drama, but how real is it?
yeah,
At least they don't try to sugarcoat it. They don't lie about it. They're very upfront about it. They're very candid. And I guess you could respect that.
yeah,
they're
They're not
real.
trying to like hide under
They're
the
real
shroud of being
dysfunction.
mysterious, or like Dylan. He
yeah,
just does things just to piss people off, just because, or like they just, you know, they seem to be very genuine in their stuff and to in their personalities, and it's just they just don't, like you said, Dean, they just don't care.
yeah,
And I,
yeah. And I think to one last tidbit, I don't think any of their fights were about music.
No, not
Like
at
I,
all.
I don't, couldn't find anything right about them like fighting
yeah,
over this song needs to be this way or I don't want this. It's like the fights were always like external, like almost like bugging each other, like and needling each other. But when it came time to make the music, again, you would never know what a shambles they were because an album like this is like after listening, the more I listened to it, the more I kind of I got it and kind of really kind of understood the statement of this is what we have to present and we're going to grow from here, and they did, right? And Noel grew as a songwriter and a lyricist to to Christie's point that she looks at the lyrics of things and
Mhm.
and that's a draw for her. And then the songs sometimes got more delicate as well. So that shows maturity in your craft, and that's the second album in.
Yeah.
Right.
I found myself listening to the second album, turning this. I listened to the album once. I turned, and by the midpoint of the second listen, I was already listening to, Morning Glory, and because of the tracks on that, because they are. I mean, they're they're definitely a step up.
Yeah.
And they were of their day, and that's the stuff that I like about, you could just try to divorce yourself from the whole like bullshit,
and it doesn't bother me. It doesn't
and just be like listening to the songs, because they are well written and they are strong. So yeah, I mean, it's just
one of the things you get from the album is how hungry they are.
Yeah.
And I think Chris touches on that more than any of us, where like even with Rock and Roll Star, like they want this, like they genuinely want to be rock and roll stars, and they everything they're doing is for that. And so you do get that energy in it, like where they're trying, not that they're trying so hard, because I don't want to sound like it's not coming across, but they're putting all their effort into it.
They're leaving it all in the studio. They're leaving it all.
They are,
stage.
and you can appreciate that.
Yeah.
Whether you like I don't particularly like the lyrics, but I enjoy more of the riffs and the music, which is a very opposite thing for me. You do have to appreciate it, and I think for me, again, in the second album, it all comes to fruition.
Yeah.
But they really wanted it. They weren't just bullshitting their way through it. They were genuinely trying.
Yeah, and I think no matter if it's the first album, this album, or any of the subsequent ones, it's squarely Oasis because of Liam, because of his unique vocal style. Like there's no one. I don't think anybody's even tried to imitate him. Like it's one of those things that's very singular. His enunciation and like I said, the way he plays with words and stretches vowels hasn't been seen since. And there's a couple of I read some other things, like other artists that he may have taken, but when I was listening, I'm like, I think of like what's the pretty vacant, or I forget the other Pistols song, but yeah, very much the way Johnny Rotten plays with the vocalizations. Johnny Rotten was almost making fun of it and really kind of almost spitting in the face of it, the way he would would have a little snarl behind it as well, and some like kind of like a little spit. But Liam is much more smoother with it, and almost doing it as an artist would, and just kind of really gently playing with the vocalizations and playing with where to stretch a word out to make it fit within a verse, which is really brilliant, because sometimes if you just look at the lyrics, it's like it doesn't seem like they're saying a lot, but when he starts playing with the length of the words or how he's saying it, it kind of enhances it enhances the song as well. It's as important what he's doing as it is to it's almost like the anti backdrop to the guitar assault is how Liam is approaching he's not approaching the songs like a hard rock vocalist, right? Or like a metal vocalist, because the backing tracks on this are very heavy, but he's taking a different approach to it. He's not screaming, right? He never really screams, but he's delivering vocals that is a counterpoint on this album to what's behind him, the backing tracks that are so heavy and so dense, right? They're so like thick almost. That I think there's something unique there.
Yeah, and it's not your typical. Like the guitars have a very like you said, like hard rock or punkish feel to them, but like so he and you would hear somebody screaming over that, like and he's not doing that, which is he's making it his own and working within. I'm sure working within his limitations. Like he realizes like he's not going to be Freddie Mercury, so he's using what he has and to great effect.
Yeah, and it made a totally unique sound, and I think even back then,
oh absolutely,
when it came out, it was very again, especially in the wash of all the grunge and all that kind of angst-filled kind of vocalizations, to hear something as heavy but with different vocal stylings was like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, this is kind of interesting, right? It's kind of something similar but different because of Liam.
And even though it is heavy, even though there is a heaviness to it, it's still brighter sounding than say like a Nirvana record or or any of those other bands like a Soundgarden record. There's a brightness to it that those don't have.
Yeah. So, should we talk about favorite tracks? Christy, do you have any favorite tracks on this album?
Yeah. Well, "Live Forever" would have been was my favorite track off this album. When it first came out, when I first heard them, and I don't know why. Maybe because it's different. Maybe because they stretch it out. It's different than every other song in there. But I really like "Married with Children."
Yeah.
It's not really an upbeat song. I mean, it's kind of mean.
It's a weird album closer. I think that would have done for me. It would have been better in the middle of the album because it would have been something different to break things up.
Thoroughly enjoy that song.
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoy it, and maybe because also for my ears it was a little bit different.
Yeah.
On the album, like it just broke up like the monotony of how every other song kind of sounded. So I can't really put my finger on it. But I really like "Married with Children." I mean, "Live Forever" is a great song, though. It really is.
Yeah, it's absolutely like one of their calling cards.
Yeah,
Chris,
what
about
still
you?
stands after 30 years. It's still a solid song.
Like I said, "Rock and Roll Star" to me is one of the best album openers ever. I really dig Supersonic. "Slide Away" has always been a standout track to me, and I don't know, for whatever reason I kept gravitating in the last few days to Digsy's Diner. I don't know, there's something about the bounce to that song and the
Like lasagna.
the piano riff in it and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, there's, like I said, on the surface it seems very same. But I think it's one of those albums that you kind of have to really kind of give some time. It's not going to be one of those ones where you listen to it like, oh, I got it. Eric, what do you have? Do you have a couple?
Yeah, "Live Forever," of course.
Yeah.
I like "Up in the Sky," and "Slide Away." I agree with Chris there. That is a standout track. And I actually listened to the me with re-releases and such, but I mean I don't know what. I guess, I mean, is this the Mono Valley version of the songs? It's obviously a different production.
There's the 2012 remaster. Then there's those sessions are after it. At least on Spotify, I didn't listen to the extra
sessions. Actually, I really dig those sessions, like, because it sounds like in the studio, in the moment, in the room,
for some
kind
of them,
feel.
they couldn't afford the orchestra at the time, and so when they could afford an orchestra, they went back and remastered them.
The Mono Valley versions I think was when they were working with that guy Batchelor. I think that was the stuff that like they kind of found like unreleasable, so they went back, and then the Sawmill stuff that you see when you look at the re-release of this. There's Mono Valley versions and Sawmill's outtakes. Sawmill's was the second try at things. So yeah, there's two different looks at the album in a.
Some of the songs have there's a lightness about these alternate versions that it's not as heavy, it's not as bombastic, and there's a slight polish to them too. There's the echo, there's that reverb happening.
Yeah,
so
that's not what they wanted.
No, it's not what they wanted, but it definitely lends to to the sort of Brit pop aspect though. So there's that step closer to that more poppy type of sound, which in some cases it worked, some cases it didn't. So I did listen to that all the way through, and of course the regular versions, but I mean those are my standout tracks for me.
I'll make it a quartet. I'll go with "Live Forever." Of course, it's a great song. Shaker Maker, just because I want Coca-Cola to get paid every time we play it. So Shaker Maker is good. Like I said, a lot of these, each one is kind of quirky. You start to really, like I said, like Columbia, I really picked up on. Slide Away, I really picked up on. But yeah, like I said, it is a really strong and it's a heavy album. So if you thought that the only thing that was going on was grunge, there was a whole, there really weren't. Chris or Eric, tell me, there really weren't any English grunge bands, were they? I mean, that was mostly an American thing.
No, that definitely was more of an American
I mean,
thing.
I'm sure there were, but there really was. It was, mainly.
Britpop was really what was happening in England in the 90s.
Yeah.
That was, and Oasis is kind of considered the pinnacle of that whole musical movement.
Yeah, which was this whole other thing that was going on, much like in the 60s in the early 60s when Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons and Paul Anka and all that kind of stuff was popular, and then there was this British invasion that was brewing in England. This is kind of the same thing that was happening in the 90s, where grunge was everything American in rock was grunge or alternative, or it was heavy. But then again, there would be this second coming or third coming, because we had the 80s British invasion, of these UK bands formulating something different. And as a response, the call was grunge, the response was Britpop, and we're gonna come back with stuff that's throwbacky a little bit, and that's what Oasis is. As much as they cop riffs, some of this stuff does sound like it could be from another era. It wasn't totally modern sounding. Some of it, even on the second album, has a classic sound to it in one form or another. So,
I mean, even the title of Wonderwall is Wonderwall music. That was a George Harrison album.
Exactly. Speaking of George Harrison, as we wrap this up, I just saw today on YouTube, Eric, Weird Al Yankovic singing "What Is Life" by George Harrison. There was like a George Harrison convention or something from a few years back, and he does it seriously with a full band with horns and everything.
Really?
You would not know if you shut your eyes, you would not have known it was Weird Al. He did such a great job as just a straight ahead rock, like a straight ahead rock vocalist, and he tackled "What Is Life," and it was like, I was like, he wasn't weirding it out. He wasn't doing all kinds of quirky stuff.
I could see it. He actually has a decent voice, when
and he's got a really cooking band. That band is great.
Yeah,
even in parody. I mean, it's he does what he does, but he does have a really good voice. He wouldn't be able to do the things he does if he didn't. So so I'm not surprised.
And didn't fight with anybody as far as we know.
Yeah,
no fighting in the Weird Al camp. So, Christy,
you have the final. It sounds like Coolio in it.
What's that?
No, I just want to know if Coolio was in the video.
No, he was not. Straight up rock performance. It's on YouTube. Check it out. I thought I was going to watch it as a curiosity, and I'm like, wow, he's actually just really singing and really giving it his all. And the performance was a faithful rendition musically with the horns and everything. It was like the full thing. I'm like, wow, this is really great. So anyway, that's going to do it for this episode of the 3324 podcast. We put another one in the can for you. So if you're listening to this in the future, this is one of our older episodes that you can check out. It's been out for a while at this point, maybe. We're not sure, but otherwise for the people just listening, hey, it's a new episode. Christopher Clark, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you for your insights, sir. Always
this is almost like a
pleasure.
reverse. It's like a reverse.
Thank you for indulging my suggestion.
Yeah, no, of course. Like I said, part of this is me taking those trips down musical avenues that I haven't gone before. So I kind of like that, where it's like, okay, now I get to listen to something that's totally new or that I'm somewhat familiar with and get to check it out.
Yep.
Christy Cuomo. There you are. Thank you for joining us.
Still here.
Still here.
Thank you for having me.
You keep your video keeps blinking in and out. So
yeah,
connection issues, but that's okay. And as for myself, I'll be on the hard green IKEA chair. Eric will be directly on that comfy couch, which is looks. He's got the pillows. I mean, it's just like he's all set.
Yeah. Got to dress it up.
I'm here creaking my back. If you want to interact with us, as mentioned in the beginning, you can do a one-way thing with us and give us some feedback or whatever. We'll take it. But if you want a little more in-depth interaction, you can hit us up on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube. We post the video versions of the episodes there and the audio ones as well. So that's like a full service podcast thing on YouTube. But then if you're following us on your favorite podcast provider, give us a like and subscribe. You know what? You can also give us a rating. 5 stars would be great. That helps push us up in the search results when people are looking for, when someone punches in fantastic podcast, we should be coming up on that list, but we can only do that with your reviews. So give us a 5-star review if you would. It would be greatly appreciated. We would be somewhat beholden to you. Not enough to give you money, but somewhat beholden to you. So for Christopher Clark, because I have to say each full name, for Christopher Clark, for Christy Cuomo, and just for Eric, this has been Dean. We will catch you on the flip side.